exactly.
Like what the hell?
Yeah, that's nothing.
It's nothing.
But I would be super. I thought that I was like a mastermind, right?
Yeah.
I would have travel itineraries printed out. I would have my assistant call our travel agent and say, "Look, just can you set up a trip for me going from here to here to here and all European or international travel?" And I would take that to the doctor's office and say, "Look, here it is in black and white." And I would never book the ticket, would never go on the trip. But I would get, and they were writing for massive amounts. So I was probably seeing a handful of doctors. Each was giving me in the neighborhood of 250 to 340 pills. I had moved on eventually from Vicodin to roxicodone, which I think has a 15 milligram offering. And without the Tylenol. I mean, essentially, those first few years when I was taking all that Vicodin, I was also just ingesting like a small bottle of extra-strength Tylenol every day.
Right, and I've seen many hundreds, maybe thousands of people in the same pattern. And there's something about the way opiate addiction gets spooled up that you don't ever see liver toxicity ever. Well, one case. I saw one case.
Right.
It's your liver can adjust and develop enzymatic machinery to send it to a benign compound. Otherwise, if I took 8 Tylenol right now, my liver would shut down in a couple of days.
Right. So I, had my body was processing this stuff, and quite frankly, was craving it and needing it. And now, listen, one of the sort of challenges of this type of addiction is keeping yourself in pill, like keeping yourself stocked. Mm-hmm. Right? And particularly as it progresses and you start taking more and more and more. So I went down to Tijuana once and bought 1,000 pills illegally. And
what do you mean illegally?
I mean, I walked into a pharmacy without a prescription and bought 1,000 pills.
Aren't you allowed to do that down there? No?
I mean, listen, maybe, you know.
Back then you could do that.
So I would just sort of drove them back in and was worried about drug sniffing dogs at the border and all of that. And, I had a million near misses, but managed to make it work. I even called prescription in.
That's dangerous stuff.
For myself.
Oh, boy.
I don't know that you can call, that doctors can call them in anymore, but certainly they could back then because I'd seen it.
Hey, opiates were the answer. You understand? They were going to solve everything.
That's exactly right. And that is because, as you know, that the pharmaceutical companies...
No, it was not. It was the pain management world.
Yeah, but...
And the lawyers that were putting doctors in prison for inadequate treatment of pain. I was living through it, and it froze us. We all froze in place when all the attorneys started coming at us with inadequate pain treatment, and everyone became fearful of treating pain patients. So we sent them all to the pain management.
Right.
And I saw a million things like your story, where they literally said, "This is a white hat profession. You," meaning me, "you're a dinosaur. You're interested in suffering. You don't know anything about addict never happens with opiates. They don't get addicted. This is just what they need for their pain." And by the way, if you have pain, it absorbs. I've literally had them say, I get so upset when I hear this, when I talk about this. The pain absorbs the addictive potential, it absorbs the euphoria.
Right.
Don't you understand that? This was what I was living through. And I was going, fuck no, my patients are dying. You're killing my patients, one after the other after the next. Drug companies never involved with any of it. Now, they were duplicitous.
Well,
they were duplicitous.
They were definitely duplicitous.
Yeah.
But weren't they also, quote unquote, educating the medical community that
was the pain management people. They would pay for them to go out and give their. But this was these people thought they were the shit. They were the white hat profession. The rest, you don't know what you're doing. It's always been a solution in the opiate plant, and me, have an opiophobia, and maybe you should lose your license. I would get stuff like that all the time. I was under attack, and then the state medical society has adopted this. The Department of Mental Health, the local, everybody adopted the pain as the fifth vital sign. And I had patients I was trying to get off drugs and were miserable and in pain for a couple of days. Oh, my God, the stuff I went through to try to protect my patients. It was unbelievable. Drug companies never got involved in any way.
all of this then made it incredibly easy for me to keep going.
Of course.
And
you weren't an addict. What are you talking about? And if I had called that pain management doctor, they would have excoriated me. That man, don't you understand the pain he's in? Oh yes. I've had other pain doctors lie down in front of the patient and don't touch them. You can't get them.
So then why did I have to sign that bullshit contract?
Because they believed that was all they needed to structure your pain management and also protect themselves a little bit. But it really was, this is all you need. We need to agree how we're going to do this, and then how we're going to do this is whatever you tell me you need. It's crazy.
So if
and they put people on benzodiazepines at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. I was prescribed benzos.
That's a fatal combination. You're so lucky to be here. That's how people die.
I'm incredibly lucky to be here, and because I would take them as well. I would take certainly in the evening. My biggest highs were at night. Right, I was hiding in plain sight. I had a high-powered media job, a high-profile media job, an outward-facing media job. So I was interacting with people. I was hosting movie premieres and talking to celebrities and doing all of these things. And on the outside, everything looked normal. And on the inside, I was falling apart, right? So, but yeah, they would prescribe me the benzos. They would, and obviously
it's murder. It's a murderous combination.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
The drug companies have something to do with that? No.
Well, then how are they then being forced to pay these huge settlements
now?
Yes,
because the AG got involved. The federal government came in and started just laying it down.
Right.
And it froze again. Same thing happened going the other way.
Right.
Everyone just stopped prescribing opiates. Everyone was afraid to do anything. It actually went too far. Well, you can't even get opiates for surgeries and things now. The doctors are scared. Scare doctors, they stop. That's what happens. And it stops them. And when the attorneys start doing their thing and it steps outside of malpractice now,
right,
and you are personally, criminally, and civilly liable for everything, they'll have nothing to do with it. They just freeze.
Well, listen, I was able to kind of skate by, and it's...
Well, they've only been the last year that it finally stopped.
Okay, so this was in the early 2000s or mid,
It's the federal government. It was actually Jeff Sessions that came in and just laid it down just before he lost his job.
Right. It's a pretty extraordinary thing. So, and I'll tell you this, once I realized that I was an addict, and I realized that pretty quickly, I actually sat next to you on a plane once.
Weird.
I was super, you killed my buzz because I was like, oh, fuck, I'm sitting next to Dr. Drew. He's going to absolutely know that I'm high. And I really looked forward to airplane highs, right? Because particularly like a New York to LA flight, which is what this was.
Yeah.
And, they give you a little video monitor. The lights are dim. No one's seeing what you're doing. Now, taking pills is very easy. It's not like, you can't smell it on my breath. You don't see me doing anything. It's something it was very easy to mask. But I was next to you on a flight from New York to LA, and I was like, wow, man, what a buzzkill. This guy's going to know. This is what he does. It was a very unpleasant experience. No offense. But once I really truly recognized that I had a problem, I still carried on for years because stopping was just unbelievably hard. Initially, I wanted to do it on my own,
of course,
right, which is not recommended.
But that's what everyone tries.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to. I was ashamed, and I didn't want to embarrass myself, my family. I didn't want to lose my job. It's very, very difficult to do it on your own, as you know.
Never works.
It doesn't really work, or if it does, seldom at best.
Never.
And so I then started seeing an addiction specialist who would give me buprenorphine injections that I would shoot into my leg.
Jesus.
And I really think, if I'm being honest, that I just went to see him to help deal with whatever withdrawal symptoms I was going through when I hit a dry spell and couldn't get a new prescription.
That's what people do.
And so I was like, all right, you know what? And I would go in there.
That's how the patients use buprenorphine.
And I would weep. And I'm done. This is I want my life back. I would say all this shit just to get these injections. And then I would fill a script, 2 or 3 days later, having had the injections help me, hold me
Bridge,
over,
yeah.
Exactly. And so, it's just brutal. I started spending less and less time in the office. Listen, I had a meeting once with Mike Tyson on the roof of a building in Harlem. We were putting him on the cover of the magazine, and his team had called me up and said, we'd really love for you to meet Mike. He had a great relationship with John Kennedy Jr. He needs stable presence in his life. And listen, as I write in the book, nothing like fluffs a very fragile ego, like potentially being compared to John Kennedy Jr. And I was like, I'm your man, because I figured, look, I could con a train wreck like Mike Tyson, I met him on the roof of this building in Harlem where he kept pigeons. It was an incredibly, oppressively hot fall day, like September day. I was wearing a suit, and I had taken a handful of pills. And I would swallow pills the way some people, take popcorn in the movie theater and just jam it into their mouth. I would do it. I would get them all down with, one sip of water. And by the time I met with Tyson on the roof of this building, I was swaying and sweating and bleary-eyed. It was like I had just taken a punch from him in the rain. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to fall off the roof of this building. I mean, it was just awful. And so, but I went through my life like this, and would go home for the holidays and high as a kite, and would travel out to LA a lot. I eventually developed a friendship with a rock star who was also an opiate addict, and someone that I had, whose music I had been listening to since I was a teenager. And because, again, as I write, addicts tend to be able to identify each other the way vampires can tell when you're not human.
I had a very talented woman I worked with who was going through the struggle, and she decided she was going to stop her heroin, and what was going to cure her heroin addiction was she had been adopted from Europe. She was going to go back and find her roots. That was the problem.
That's the answer.
And so she was sober a month and clean a month, not really serious about it or not really active in any kind of program, but going through some motions. And she said she had a layover in London before she went to Hungary, Yugoslavia or something. And she had like a 12-hour layover, so she went to the National Gallery in London. And she said she hadn't been in the gallery 10 minutes before she was slamming heroin with the security guard in the main gallery.
Yeah.
How would you walk up to the guy with the baton?
Addicts know each other.
They just know it.
They know each other, and it's very, very easy
uncanny.
to recognize.
It's uncanny.
Much in the same way that people in recovery can find each other very quickly.
Yep.
Which is interesting. So I befriended this rock star, and before you know it, we were doing drugs together, and he had this limo driver who could get drugs. And so the limo driver, I started coming out to LA all the time just to get picked up at the airport by this driver, and would just get drugs and hang out with the rock star and do drugs. And it was challenging though, because the rock star was taking OxyContin and would crush them up and snort them, which I would do when I was with him. But it made it very difficult for me to know how many I was taking.
You were used to titrating with the pills.
I really was, and I was, I fancied myself a master chemist at this point, and I knew, all right, I'm probably not going to die if I stop here. And I mean, that's how fucked up it is, right? Because there were also nights where I would be like, you know what, I'm going to take probably a couple more because I'm not feeling the lift that I need from this. It could kill me, but
probably
fuck
not.
it.
Probably not.
Right. I should be fine.
Yeah.
And I would wake up in the morning and just sort of take stock for a second of the fact that I was alive. Brutal.
Yeah, crazy.
Just absolutely.
How was your life falling apart other than you were staying out here with the rock star?
The cracks were definitely beginning to show, because here I was running this magazine, but I was in the office. very infrequently, with increasing, in frequency. So I would, or if I was there, I would come in for 2 to 4 hours and do what needed to be done.